Guys, I want to talk about a black fatigue video, and I want to talk about lip smacking because I noticed that, like when I see a lot of African Americans and when they eat, that's kind of in black culture, is that, when people eat food, they kind of do this and other things like that. And I'm not sure where that ever stemmed from. I heard somebody say that, usually in Jamaican culture, that is very, very common and stuff like that. But it also comes down to like bad food etiquette. And I also remember when I was a kid, if I ever did that, my dad would bring me across the face really, and tell me not to do it. Just to be like, have some good etiquette. I'm sorry to be a little aggressive, but that's how my father raised me. But yeah, but the point of it is that I did grow up in a harsh household, and but I'm sorry to be a little aggressive. Like when my neighbors was just like, what's going on, really. But the point of it is that I'm not sure like where that ever stemmed from. Like the whole entire like lip smacking or people like eating like chicken and sucking their lips and all that. And I heard somebody say that comes from like Jamaican culture, really, but also it kind of perpetuates the stereotype of black people. Like there's also the big lip stereotype. Like maybe their mouths are so large that that's why that happens. Or sometimes it also can stem from a lack of parenting, where many parents would smack their kid because you shouldn't be making sounds when you eat. And I also remember too when I was a child, when I ate, sometimes like because I have an issue with breathing, my dad would be doing the same type of banging a table and wanted to get and put his hand over close to me, be like, "Oh, I'm gonna smack you in your sinuses or whatever," really. And I remember one time like crying really because my dad was almost like, it was almost like I couldn't hear it, and whatever really. But or I even thought my dad was like kind of making up just to fuck with me, because part of it also comes down to parenting, where sometimes you may have parents that will be really, really harsh on you to have good like etiquette at the dinner table. And sometimes, what I also kind of see, as we know, that sometimes, you may have parents that are a little laid back, or sometimes you may have parents that don't care how kids eat or socialize or make noise when they're eating. But, that's definitely kind of like a very like low class way of eating food and whatever, really. And I also think that part of it is self-absorption. Because sometimes, when people eat or when they're kind of laid back, they're like, I don't care how I sound. I just want to enjoy my meals and other things like that, really. But we can all understand, too, that when we eat food, we're going to be going and other things like that, really. Because it's kind of bad etiquette. And I also think that it also kind of stems from, like, I think it kind of stems from maybe self-absorption or being like, what, I'm enjoying my moment, so I don't care how much noise I'm making or how I'm, kind of coming off to people, really. But I do think that we can all kind of agree, too, that when we eat food, we shouldn't be making noise. And I think there's really no much else to say with that. I just want to analyze. I'm not sure where that stemmed from, but also, too, that also perpetuates many stereotypes. Like some people may say that comes from the big lip stereotype or the big mouth stereotype, or that may come from, a lack of parenting because, good parents would teach their kids to eat civilized, or not to make noise when they eat. Or sometimes, as I said, it kind of also can stem from, how some people are just like, hey, you know what, I'm enjoying my food. I want to be laid back. Nobody's going to tell me how I'm going to eat or consume. If I'm smacking my lips or I'm like being a little noisy, like no problem with that. As I said, I'm not sure where the depiction came from. I know that there's Birth of a Nation, which was a very racist film, and it showed white people in blackface eating fried chicken and other things like that, and just eating like a savage. So maybe it kind of came from media or racist media saying that, okay, not only do black people like fried chicken and other stereotypical foods, it can also be a stereotype that, how they eat food is done in very like lack of etiquette type of ways, really. And I understand too that some people have like quirks and whatever, really, so obviously sometimes we have to kind of get rid of some of our quirks and whatever like that. Like I remember like I was very OCD when I was a kid, so I would always like make sure when I'm walking down a street, I always like will watch how my legs go. Like I was like when I watch walked on the sidewalk steps, I'd make sure that my leg touch my foot touch one sidewalk block, my other one would touch another sidewalk block, and continue the pattern. Like I make sure they touch it, even them out. I remember like one day my dad got mad and he grabbed my foot and he was kind of like saying no 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 no. He was grabbing my feet and he was kind of like rearranging it and being like, no, you're gonna walk the way that I want you to walk, and other things like that. But definitely. There's definitely like some people also have parents too that are kind of like, okay, everything has to be done in a way that that befits me, or if I see something quirky or awkward, I'm going to just shut it down, really. And that's all I gotta say about it. Like I just said, I'm not really sure where that ever stemmed from, or where the lips, or the lip sucking, or the teeth sucking, or the lip smacking, or the tooth sucking, or anything like that came from. But it is a sign of bad etiquette, and usually, as a lot of people notice, that does come from the black community. That's something that many, not all black people, but there's some black people that just do that, and we kind of just don't know where that stems from. But also, as I said too, I've heard stories of, in the Asian community, like there's this stereotype, or there's this thing that happens when they go to all you eat buffets. They always want to like hog everything, really. Or you even look at, how like, people who are white usually eat. Like sometimes, like I don't like that thing too when people drink coffee and their fingers sticking out. Like that looks a little weird. Like, and other things like that. That's kind of like a weird thing as well, really. But I also think that I kind of said it really correctly, really, that it just stems from maybe somebody made that popular, and not realizing that makes you look uncivil. And it says, okay, maybe when other people, like white people, eat food, that they're more civilized, but other people just like kind of incorporate their bad manners and other things like that. So I'm not sure where all like the lip sucking and the teeth sucking and the lip smacking came from, but it is a sign of just bad etiquette and bad home training.